to give my wife the life I thought she deserved, to give her a sense of security. I turned down more opportunities than I could count. I never imagined that after 7 years of marriage, I'd discover she was the president of my company, that she'd been pretending to be poor, living a simple life with me just to test me, that she'd deliberately suppressed my career, throwing one obstacle after another in my path. My promotions were repeatedly denied, my bonuses gutted, and my performance reviews sabotaged. Even the startup pitch deck I'd poured my soul into years ago was secretly shot down by her. When I finally learned the truth, I filed for divorce to start my own venture. That's when she panicked, offered me promotions, raises, a blank check to invest in my ideas. She didn't believe in my project. She just wanted to keep me on a leash. When she cried and begged me not to leave, I walked away without a second thought. I was going to build my own dream. My project was a success, but I wasn't the one who won. The applause in the conference room felt like daggers in my ears. The projector was still on, displaying the words Stellar Dynamics. Nexus AI Project Final Report. In the bottom right corner, Project Lead, Leo Vance. 3 months of sleepless nights, of algorithms rewritten and optimized countless times, had finally earned the client's highest praise. According to company policy, a success of this magnitude should have come with a bonus in the 6 figures. I never expected this. And now, for a personnel announcement, said Cheryl Bishop, the general manager, adjusting her glasses. Her voice was devoid of emotion. Effective immediately, Ethan Cole will be promoted to Director of Technology, overseeing the AI division. My fingers dug into my palms. Wait, that wasn't my name. I'm sorry, she corrected herself, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. My apologies. Effective immediately, Leo Vance will be promoted to Director of Technology. Leo, the kid I'd mentored, was now standing awkwardly, accepting congratulations from the team. He wouldn't meet my eyes. As for the project bonus, Cheryl continued, pushing up her gold-rimmed glasses, the company has decided to adjust the allocation plan. I watched her lips move, but the rest of her words faded into a dull roar. 90% of my bonus gone? What was left wouldn't even cover a celebratory dinner for the team. They had stolen my work, then slapped me in the face with a receipt for my own humiliation. After the meeting, the newly minted Director Vance tried to stop me. Ethan, man, I shoved past him and kicked open the door to the general manager's office. What the hell is this? I slammed the project report down on her desk. Cheryl, on what grounds? She calmly rubbed lotion into her hands. The company needs new blood. You're too rigid, Ethan. Your technical approach is too. Bullshit. I slammed my fist on the desk. The core algorithm on this project was all me. Watch your tone. She slapped the desk, her overpowering perfume making me nauseous. The company reserves the right to allocate its resources. You don't like it? Your resignation letter is welcome on my desk anytime. I clenched my fists, my nails digging so deep into my palms I thought they might draw blood. 30 years old, 7 years at this company, and I had just been screwed over by my own protege and my boss. When I got home, my wife, Sophie, was in the kitchen making a pot roast. The sight of her, humming softly as she stirred, sent a pang of guilt and frustration through me. Hearing the door, she wiped her hands on her apron and came out. Hey, I thought you had a big celebration dinner tonight. How come you're home so early? Sophie, I want to quit. I loosened my tie and threw my briefcase onto the couch. Her expression changed instantly. She rushed over, her hands on my shoulders. What happened? Talk to me. After I laid out the whole ugly story, she pulled me into a hug. Oh, honey, that's awful. You have every right to be upset. But with the job market the way it is right now, are you sure? But I've been the company's fall guy for years, I said, my voice tight. Do you have any idea how messed up this is? Leo, I trained him. Sweetheart, she murmured, rubbing my back soothingly. Calm down. I know how much this hurts. She tried to reason with me. But what adult doesn't have to eat a little crap at work sometimes? I get that you want to quit, I really do. But we have to be practical. What about the mortgage? Groceries? And your mom's surgery is next month. She grabbed her phone and pulled up our banking app. Look, if you quit right now, we won't even have enough to cover next quarter's HOA fees. I snatched the phone and tossed it onto the bed. Money, money, money. Is that all you ever think about? I have zero dignity left at that place. Sophie's eyes suddenly welled up. She bit her lip, a familiar tell, something she always did when she knew she was in the wrong. Okay, honey, please don't be angry. Her voice trembled. If you want to quit, then quit. Your happiness is what's important, as long as we. She trailed off, clapping a hand over her mouth before bolting for the bathroom. I followed and found her retching over the toilet. What's wrong? I asked, instinctively reaching out to steady her. She gripped my hand, her face pale. Nothing. Just my acid reflux acting up. Wiping her mouth, she softened her tone again. Honey, can you just hang on a little longer? Please? Maybe. Maybe just until you get your end-of-year bonus. Looking at my wife, so visibly distressed, I felt a hot sting behind my eyes. Later that night, I stood on the balcony, smoking. My phone lit up with a text from Leo. Ethan, man, I'm so sorry. I honestly had no idea this was going to happen. The December wind rattled the windows. I stared at the year-end performance numbers on my monitor, my fingers tapping out the same figure on my calculator for the third time. 0.75. Only 3/4 of what I was owed. Again, I muttered, rubbing my temples. The office fluorescents were making my eyes ache. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Honey, I'm making your favorite pot roast tonight. Come home soon. Smiling face with smiling eyes. I stared at the message for a long time. For 7 years, my year-end bonus had been mysteriously slashed, and every time, Sophie would just gently console me. It's okay. We'll just be a little more careful with our spending. Still here, Ethan? Leo peeked in my office. The team's heading out for drinks. You coming? Nah, my wife's waiting for me. I managed a weak smile and shut down my computer. As I was leaving the building, I ran into Amanda Hayes from accounting. The moment she saw me, her expression turned guarded. She gave me a curt nod and hurried away. Ethan, a voice broke my train of thought. It was Leo, jogging to catch up. Hey, I almost forgot. Sophie asked me to give this to you. He handed me an elegant box. Inside was the watch I'd been eyeing for months. Sophie. I frowned. Leo's face flushed. Yeah, you know, Sophie from HR. She's always helping people out with group orders and stuff. I stared at his flustered expression, a seed of doubt planting itself in my mind. This was a Tag Heuer, at least $5,000. On our budget, there was no way Sophie could afford this. Was it a knockoff? Was she trying to help me save face at work after all the humiliation? Cole, Mark Jennings from the marketing department called out to me. Hey, the annual company gala is this weekend, but I've got to go see my wife's family out of state. You think you could go for me? If you can't make it, just RSVP no. I was planning on spending the weekend with my wife. Anyway, come on, man, there's a raffle. What if my name gets called for the grand prize? Just do me a solid. It's a huge event. Nobody will even know who's who. On Thursday, I was working late, searching the archives for an old contract. As I was crouched down, sifting through the bottom shelf, I heard familiar voices. Who else was here this late? Curious, I followed the sound to the executive lounge. Peeking through a gap in the frosted glass door, I saw it was a celebration for Leo. The celebration that should have been mine. Sophie's pearl earrings shimmered in the reflection on the glass wall as she clinked a champagne flute with Leo. What was she doing here? She was just an administrative assistant. 3 hours ago, she'd texted me that she was at her mom's place, taking care of her because she was sick. But here she was, wearing a Burberry trench coat I'd never seen before, with a brooch at her collar that screamed money. Her voice drifted through the gap. You did a beautiful job on the acquisition, but for God's sake, don't let it slip. It sounded like other company executives were in there, too. Her words confused me. Let's just stick with this year's executive bonus plan. We'll announce it at the gala tomorrow night. Oh, and transfer his portion to my Swiss account. It was Sophie's voice again, but the tone was one I had never heard, cold, commanding. Ms. Davis, if we do that, Ethan's year-end bonus will be practically nothing again. That was Cheryl Bishop, the general manager. Ms. Davis? Who were they talking about? Was there another executive named Davis? Just do as I say, Sophie said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Besides, don't they say money corrupts a man? Controlling his finances like this. It's just a test. My fingers went numb, still resting on the file folder. My ears were ringing. Ms. Davis had to be Sophie. My Sophie? The administrative assistant? What they said next sent a chill through my entire body. And anyway, his money is my money. Isn't it perfectly normal for a wife to take her husband's earnings? I bet your husband has no idea you've been pulling the strings on his career all these years. It's almost sad, said Amanda Hayes from accounting. You know, last week I was approving his department's expenses, and I noticed he even logged the cost of coffee he bought for a client. That's called risk management, Sophie said smugly. It was so cute when he was trying to win me over, cashing out his college fund to buy me a diamond ring. She paused, lowering her voice. You know, he still thinks I only make $60,000 a year. She chuckled, tapping something on her phone. My blood ran cold. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie. Honey, don't forget to eat the pot roast. I set the microwave timer for you. The lock screen was a picture of us, smiling as we ate late-night pizza on a curb. Besides, Sophie's voice floated out again after she sent the text. Even if I didn't cut his bonuses, he'd just turn his paycheck over to me anyway. This way, I cut out the middleman and give him a little character building experience. You call this a little experience? Amanda said. You've been holding him down for years. Based on his performance, he should have been made a director ages ago, not a team lead. Cheryl added, honestly, Sophie, I don't get it. You're Sophie Davis, heiress to the Davis fortune, president of a publicly traded company, and yet you put your own husband through the ringer. But Sophie, Cheryl continued, don't you think you went too far this time? You promised that after this project, he'd get a promotion and a real bonus. Instead, you gave it all to Leo, the kid he trained. I honestly feel bad for him. Feelings are feelings, Sophie warned. Just don't let any of this get out. We know, Amanda said, but how long are you going to keep testing him? That man really loves you. You need to be careful you don't push him too far. Maybe you should give the promotion back to Ethan. Leo chimed in. A man works that hard. He deserves some recognition. Giving it to me, just to test him. It feels like it might break him. This whole setup is designed to give him some grit, to toughen him up, Sophie said. One day, I'll tell him the truth. I might even have him help run the company when I'm on maternity leave. If he can't handle a little setback like this, how could he ever handle that? Another round of laughter erupted from a lounge. Leo's voice was laced with concern. Sophie, giving me the promotion really hit him hard. He's been like a ghost the past few days. Are you sure he'll be okay? That's the point. Sophie's voice was as light as if she were discussing the weather. If he doesn't go through some adversity, how will he ever be ready to help me run my company? But, Leo started. Oh, drop it, Sophie cut in. Worst case, I'll make it up to him later. Come on, let's have another drink. I could hear the clinking of glasses. By the way, Sophie added, you didn't notify Ethan about the gala tomorrow, right? No, Cheryl replied. It's mid-level management and up only. He's a team lead. He was scheduled for weekend on-call duty. Good. The last thing I need is for him to find out. The cheerful sounds from the lounge were like knives twisting in my gut. Every word made me colder. My wife, Sophie, the same woman who cooked for me and comforted me, was a completely different person. I remembered when we were buying our condo, trying to minimize the mortgage. Sophie told me she had no savings, but that her parents had given her $20,000 to contribute, which we could pay back slowly. Another lie. That money was hers. To avoid burdening her parents, I never touched it. I took on a bigger mortgage myself, my own parents kicking in $30,000 to help. I was the one paying over $2,000 a month on the mortgage, trying to give her a good life. The pressure was immense. When Sophie said she wasn't ready for kids, I agreed without question. Later, even as I struggled at work, my salary grew at a snail's pace. In our 5th year of marriage, with just over 4 years left on the loan, I wanted to pay it all off. But then the company suddenly implemented a new performance review system. We would only receive 70% of our salary monthly. The remaining 30% would be paid out at the end of the year with our bonus. And it only applied to lower-level management. Now I knew it was another measure Sophie had designed specifically for me. Excellent performance could earn you a multiplier of 1, 5 to 2 times your withheld pay. Poor performance would get you 0, 5 to 0, 9. But every single year, some unexpected issue would arise, causing my review to be mediocre. I always ended up with a 0, 7, or 0, 8 multiplier. I had to take on freelance coding jobs at night to make ends meet. During the pandemic, things got really tight. I worked my day job, then drove for Uber at night. I almost got into a serious accident once from sheer exhaustion. Even then, we were at risk of defaulting on our mortgage. That year, my performance was rated average, and I got a 1, 0 multiplier, my full salary for once. Sophie held up my review sheet and said with fake sympathy, "Honey, you finally got your full pay this year." Thinking back, her tone wasn't encouraging. It was as if she were granting me a great favor. I always thought I just had bad luck. Now I saw it was all by design. 3 years ago, I stayed up until 3 a.m. to finish a project proposal, only to be told at the morning meeting that it had been reassigned. Sophie held me and said, "This company is so unfair." What was that glint in her eye? Guilt or satisfaction? 2 years ago, I applied for the position of technical director. I had unanimous support in the review meeting, but the day before the announcement, I was suddenly told the position was eliminated due to corporate restructuring. That night, Sophie opened a bottle of wine to console me. Now I knew she was celebrating the success of her scheme. After 7 years of marriage, I thought I knew Sophie. Tonight, my entire world had been turned upside down. I stumbled out of the building, not even realizing my face was wet with tears until the cold wind hit me. Walking down the street, I passed a real estate office. The homes for sale signs in the window, with pictures of happy families, stung my eyes. Sophie always said she wasn't ready for kids. Was it because she never planned a future with me? Or something crueler? Had she already planned everything, including when she would permit me to become a father. The coffee shop on the corner was where we had our first date. She wore a simple white blouse that day, smiling as she told me she was a simple admin assistant whose biggest dream was to have a warm, loving home. What a perfect performance. I stood under a streetlight, staring at her smiling face on my phone's wallpaper. 7 years of marriage, and I was her puppet. What I thought was tenderness was the condescension of a manipulator. The support I was so grateful for was just the pity a hunter feels for its prey. The keychain on my car keys, a matching set from our anniversary, suddenly felt disgusting. I ripped it off and threw it in a nearby trash can. Tomorrow, no, starting right now, I was taking back my life. I pulled out my phone and called Mark Jennings. About that gala tomorrow night. I'll go for you. The next evening, at the company's annual gala. And now, please join me in welcoming the president of Stellar Dynamics, Ms. Sophie Davis. The host's voice boomed through the ballroom. I was looking down at my phone at a text from my wife saying she'd be home late. As that familiar figure walked onto the stage, my fingers froze on the screen. In the spotlight was my wife, Sophie, the woman who claimed to be an administrative assistant, wearing a custom-tailored gown I'd never seen before, her heels clicking elegantly as she approached the podium. Her hair wasn't in its usual simple ponytail, but styled in soft waves, her makeup so flawless I almost didn't recognize her. Thank you to all our partners at Stellar Dynamics for your hard work this past year. Her voice, amplified by the microphone, hammered at my heart with every word. My mind went blank, a buzzing sound filling my ears. Sophie wasn't an admin. She was the president of my company. And for 7 years, I had been the fool she kept in the dark. Ethan, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. My colleague from marketing, Jason, nudged my arm. The truth had been confirmed, and a wave of nausea washed over me. I shot to my feet, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. People at nearby tables turned to look, but I didn't care. My eyes were locked on the woman on stage. So familiar, yet a complete stranger. Sophie saw me. Her speech faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of panic in her eyes before she quickly regained her presidential composure. I'm fine, I told Jason, my voice raspy. Just need to use a restroom. I shot one last look at Sophie and practically fled the ballroom. I burst into the men's room and splashed cold water on my face hard. The man in the mirror had wild, bloodshot eyes and a twisted expression. I thought back over the last 7 years, and suddenly all the pieces clicked into place. Why my bonuses were always cut due to company difficulties. Why Sophie always talked me out of quitting. Why we lived in that modest condo when our combined income should have afforded much more. Why she was always the one who handled our finances. It was all a lie. A meticulously crafted, 7-year-long deception. The door to the restroom opened. The click of heels stopped behind me. In the mirror, I saw Sophie standing there, her face etched with a nervous expression I had never seen before. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Please, just let me explain. She reached out to touch my shoulder. I spun around, dodging her hand. Explain what? How you played me for a fool for 7 years. My voice trembled with suppressed rage. Do you have any idea how ridiculous I felt sitting out there, watching you on that stage? Sophie bit her lip, that old habit surfacing whenever she was nervous or lying. Honey, please, not here. Let's just go home and talk about this. She tried to take my arm. Talk about what? I yanked my arm away, my voice as cold as ice. How you played me for a fool. How you sabotaged my promotions. Or how you used performance reviews to nickel and dime me until I was living like a pauper. Her expression finally cracked, her brow furrowing as if she couldn't believe my anger. I was just trying to test you, to see if you really love me for me, not for my money or my position. Test me? I almost laughed. For 7 years. You tested me for 7 years. Do you know how many opportunities one gave up to give you a better life? Do you know how many nights I worked until dawn just to make a little extra money so you could be comfortable? She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance to speak. And the funniest part? You're rich, but you pretended to be poor, letting me kill myself over a mortgage I barely afforded. Watching me struggle like an idiot. Was that fun for you? Her eyes turned red, her voice shaky. Ethan, I was just afraid you'd. Afraid of what? That I'd become a bad person if I had money? That I wouldn't love you? I scoffed. Sophie, you're the one who never trusted this marriage. You never saw me as an equal partner. You just wanted to control me. She fell silent. Memories flooded back. Years ago, I was shopping my Nexus Cloud project around, trying to find investors. Every firm in the country turned me down. They'd show initial interest, then mysteriously back out. Then, 3 years ago, I received an offer letter from a firm in Singapore. A stable salary, 3 times what I was making. Equity in the company. The only condition was that I had to relocate. I rushed home, excited to tell Sophie, but she burst into tears, saying she was scared of a long-distance relationship, that she needed me here. I felt terrible and turned down the offer. That job in Singapore. You made me turn it down, didn't you? My voice dropped, heavy with a new understanding. And all those venture capital firms in the States. That was you too. Her eyes darted away. She didn't answer, but her silence was a confession. And Cheryl. Your best friend Cheryl, I said, dripping sarcasm on the words. She was in on it too, wasn't she? No wonder every transfer request was denied. Every raise was delayed. Ethan, it wasn't like that. Sophie stepped forward, desperate. I love you so much. I was afraid of losing you. Love, I sneered. Real love isn't built on lies and manipulation. For 7 years, I put up with Cheryl's bullshit, worked myself to the bone, all to give you a better life. And you just stood by and watched me struggle. Tears streamed down her face, but this time, all I felt was disgust. The tears I once would have done anything to stop now seemed like part of a well-rehearsed performance. I'm done, I said, taking a deep breath. Sophie, I want a divorce. Her face went white. No, Ethan, you can't. I can make it up to you. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. What I want is respect and honesty, not your handouts. I pushed past her and walked out of the restroom. Back in the ballroom, I headed straight for the exit. I could hear the frantic clicking of her heels and her voice calling my name, but I didn't look back. For the first time in 7 years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I remember a rainy night years ago. I was standing on our balcony, clutching my rejected business plan. The rain soaked the paper, making the ink bleed. Honey, maybe you should just let it go, Sophie had said, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her voice was gentle, but her words were absolute. Isn't your project a little too idealistic? Maybe that's why no investors are interested. They just don't see its potential, I'd sighed. She patted my back like I was a child. Okay, even if it has potential, we've tried so many times. What's changed? I had no answer then. I didn't know that every investor I'd hopefully met with had received a confidential advisory from Stellar Dynamics. Regarding Ethan Cole's Nexus Cloud project, Stellar Dynamics advises against investment. Technical roadmap is unclear. Business model is questionable. Team lacks experience. Please do not disclose the source of this correspondence. And every business plan I meticulously prepared was delivered first to Sophie's desk. It wasn't that she didn't support my dream. It was that she never believed I could succeed on my own. The next day was Saturday. Normally, I would have gone with Sophie to the grocery store to stock up for the week. This time, I woke up early, packed a bag with a few essentials, left my key on the counter, and walked out of the place I once called home. I checked into a cheap motel near the office. On Monday morning, after taking a half day off, I sat in a lawyer's office, a divorce petition spread out on the table before me. Mr. Cole, are you certain you wish to waive your right to all marital assets? The lawyer asked, adjusting his glasses. According to state law, I just want the salary I was rightfully owed. I cut him off. I don't want a penny of anything else. Walking out of the law firm, the sunlight was blinding. My phone was filled with dozens of missed calls and texts. The latest one read, Honey, please, just give me a chance to explain. When I got to the office that afternoon, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My colleagues shot me curious, gossipy looks, but no one dared to speak to me. Soon after, HR called and told me to go to the president's office. I pushed the door open to see Sophie sitting behind a massive desk. Cheryl Bishop stood beside her, her expression unreadable. Ethan, Sophie's voice was soft. Come in, sit down. Let's talk. Cheryl took the hint and slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. The silence in the room was a physical weight between us. I signed the divorce papers, I said, breaking the silence. The asset division is fair. I'm only taking what I earned. Sophie's eyes widened in disbelief. No, Ethan, you can't just leave. I can make it up to you. She got up and walked around the desk. I was wrong. I know I was. Look, I've already arranged for your promotion. Director of Technology, double the salary. She handed me a document. I glanced at it. An official promotion notice. And this, she pulled a debit card from a drawer. There's $2 million in this account. If it's not enough, I can deposit another $1 million every month. You can. I don't need your charity. I pushed the document and the card back across the desk. If she had told me the truth sooner, maybe I could have forgiven her. But now, after everything, her money felt like an insult. It's not charity, she said, her voice rising. I can make you a vice president. I can give you shares in the company. Anything you want. Sophie, you still don't get it, do you? I don't want your money or your job titles. Then what do you want? Tell me, and I'll do it. Her voice was thick with unshed tears, her fingers clutching my sleeve. I want the last 7 years back. I want your trust and respect, I said calmly. But that's impossible now. All I want for my future is to live an honest life. I turned to leave, but she threw her arms around me from behind. Please don't go. I love you. I really, really love you. For a second, I almost faltered. 7 years of shared history couldn't be erased overnight. But a lie is a lie. Once trust is shattered, it can never be perfectly mended. I gently pried her hands off me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have schemed and tested me. She froze, as if she couldn't believe my resolve. Ethan, she reached for me again. I took a step back. Don't touch me. Her composure finally crumbled. Tears streamed down her face. You really don't want me anymore. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away, the sound of her sobbing echoing behind me. Leaving her office, I felt a lightness I hadn't known in years. I went back to my desk, submitted my resignation, and ignored the shocked expressions from Cheryl and my coworkers. That evening, I dug up the 3-year-old offer letter from the company in Singapore. The investor had told me to get in touch if I ever changed my mind. On a whim, I sent them an email asking if the opportunity was still there. To my surprise, they replied the next day. They were still interested, and the founder wanted to set up a video call. 2 weeks later, I had a new offer on the table, with even better terms than before. They invited me to Singapore to finalize the details of my equity stake. I accepted. In Sophie's private office, Cheryl Bishop swirled a glass of iced coffee, her brow furrowed. Sophie, what are you thinking? She finally said. He's divorcing you, and now you decide to make it up to him? Where was this generosity before? Sophie stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Her gaze was fixed on the R&D building across the courtyard, where Ethan's office used to be. I didn't want him to take the hard road, she whispered. The hard road? Cheryl scoffed. You mean you were afraid he'd fly too far for you to keep him caged? Years ago, Ethan's Nexus Cloud project, there was real VC interest. You were the one who secretly shut it down, weren't you? Cheryl stared at her. He could have been a founder. Instead, you kept him stuck here as a mid-level engineer. He gave up a chance to study abroad for you. Cheryl continued. And you wouldn't even risk $1 million to let him try? Sophie's knuckles turned white. That project wasn't ready. The architecture was a mess. The tech was too radical. It was a huge risk. Bullshit. Cheryl cut her off. You were scared that if he succeeded, he'd grow wings, and you wouldn't be able to control him anymore. Sophie was silent. Cheryl sighed. Even if you didn't believe in it, why not secretly back him yourself? A few million is nothing to you, but it would have meant the world to him. But no, you'd rather watch him get rejected again and again, just so he'd stay safely by your side. Sophie's mug hit the table with a sharp crack. Those VCs wanted him to set up the company in Silicon Valley. What if he left and changed? What if the money corrupted him? Cheryl threw her hands up in exasperation. So your solution was to kill his funding, crush his dream, and make him live in your shadow for the rest of his life. The color drained from Sophie's face. Cheryl's tone softened slightly. Did you ever stop to think about what he actually wanted? He would rather struggle as an entrepreneur than be kept by you as a stable husband. After a long silence, Sophie mumbled, I just didn't want to lose him. Cheryl looked her straight in the eye. But you have lost him, and you're the one who pushed him away. She stood up, her voice firm. Listen, it might not be too late to fix this. Given the shares he's earned, write him a check big enough to matter, not as a handout, but as restitution. But no buts. Cheryl grabbed her purse. Either you let him fly, or you lose him forever. Your choice. After the door closed, Sophie slid to the floor. She pulled out her phone and found an old photo. It was Ethan, beaming after winning a college startup competition, his eyes shining with ambition. The man who looked at her now had nothing but ice in his eyes. With a trembling hand, she dialed the finance department. Prepare a transfer agreement for 15% of my personal shares, and cut a cashier's check for $20 million. After hanging up, she whispered to the photo, I'm so sorry. This time, it's my turn to support your dream. My visa was being processed. In a month, I'd be leaving this city of lies behind. That afternoon, I was sorting through some documents in my motel room when the door burst open. Sophie rushed in, carrying her signature expensive perfume scent with her. She wasn't wearing her usual immaculate makeup. Her eyes were red and swollen. She was clutching a manila envelope. Ethan, this is for you. She pushed the envelope toward me, her voice hoarse. It's a stock transfer agreement for 15% of my shares in Stellar Dynamics, and a cashier's check for $20 million. I slowly looked up, meeting her gaze. There was a time when her distress would have broken my heart. Now it just felt ironic. What's this? I asked with a cold smile. Trying to buy your way out of this, Ms. Davis. No, Ethan, it's not like that. Sophie cried. You want to build your dream, right? You don't have to go abroad and give up equity. You can do it right here. This is my investment. If it's not enough, just name a price. I'll give you more. An investment this big? Aren't you afraid you'll lose it all? I asked. It doesn't matter if I do, as long as you're happy, she said, forcing a smile. Are you investing because you believe my project will succeed, or are you investing just to keep me here? I asked. Whatever you want, honey. Just do what makes you happy, she replied quickly. Her friend, Amanda Hayes, who had come with her, spoke up from the doorway. Come on, Ethan. Sophie knows she was wrong. You two love each other. Don't let this one thing destroy everything. You're the most important person in the world to her. She only did what she did because. Because what? I shot to my feet, knocking the envelope to the floor. Because she thought money could erase 7 years of lies and manipulation. I looked at Sophie. Deep down, you still don't believe my project can succeed. That's the part one can't accept. Tears streamed down Sophie's face as she bent to pick up the scattered documents. But she's investing in you now, isn't she? You can take this money and do whatever you want, Amanda insisted. I don't want an investment from someone who doesn't believe in me, I said quietly. What's the difference? Amanda asked, confused. The difference is trust, I said, sitting back down. Please, just go. I know you hate me, Sophie sobbed. But please, at least take this. And then what? I cut her off. I take your money, and we pretend nothing happened, so you can go back to controlling my life, second-guessing my every move. The room fell silent. I walked to the window and looked down at the traffic below. 3 weeks ago, in this very city, I'd overheard Sophie telling her friends, men are simple. Just throw a little money at them, and they'll be fine. Ethan, Sophie came up behind me and tried to hug me. I immediately broke free. Don't touch me. My voice was so cold it startled even me. The moment you decided to test me, we were over. She froze, her face ashen. Then what do you want me to do? Get on my knees and beg. I really am sorry. You don't get it. I grabbed my jacket. Your real mistake wasn't the lies. It was that you never, ever believed I could make it on my own. As I reached the door, I heard her scream, then go. Go to your precious Singapore. Let's see how well you do without me. I stopped and looked back at her one last time. You'll see. But she already regretted it, rushing over and grabbing my hand. Honey, I was just angry. Don't go. I coldly pried her fingers from my wrist and walked out without looking back. In the days that followed, Sophie tried everything to reach me, calls, texts, emails. She even waited for hours outside my motel. I avoided all of it, communicating only through my lawyer. In the executive lounge at Stellar Dynamics, Amanda Hayes set down her coffee cup with a sigh. Sophie, throwing money and promotions at him now, is useless. What he hates isn't that you're rich, it's that you lied to him for 7 years. But if I don't try to compensate him, he'll never forgive me, Sophie argued, wringing her hands. And he needs the money. Leo shook his head. That's the problem, Sophie. The more money you throw at him, the more he feels like you're insulting him. Men hate being treated like they can be bought, especially after you spent years controlling his income and blocking his career. Amanda nodded in agreement. Exactly. He's in a no-win situation. If he takes the money, you'll think, see, he only cares about money after all. If he refuses, the door is closed for good. Right? Leo added. Either way, you're grinding his dignity into the dust. Sophie's face paled. Then, what should I do? Apologize. Sincerely, Leo said, and stop trying to solve it with money. You have to make him believe you're truly sorry, not just trying to buy his forgiveness. He's right, Amanda said. You have to be vulnerable. Swallow your pride. Tell him everything you hid. Let him be the one to decide what happens next. It's about pride. If you give him that power, he's not going to actually use it to control you. It's about the gesture. You're a woman. Learn to yield, to be soft. Okay, Sophie whispered, finally nodding. I'll try. The day before I moved out for good, I went back to our old condo to get the last of my things. Sophie wasn't there, but on the dining table was a letter in a small, elegant box. I hesitated, then opened the letter. Ethan, by the time you read this, you may have already decided to leave. I respect your decision, but please let me say this one last time. 10 years ago, when I first met you, I was drawn to your sincerity and your brilliance. But I was so afraid that you, like everyone else, only saw the president of Stellar Dynamics. So I came up with this stupid, foolish plan. I never imagined it would hurt you so deeply. The love and care you gave me over these 7 years were real. What I gave you in return were lies and control. I have no excuse. Inside the box is my grandmother's ring. I was going to give it to you on our 10th anniversary. Now, let it stand as my apology and my blessing. No matter where you are in the world, I hope you find happiness. Forever yours, Sophie. I opened the box. Inside was a simple platinum band, engraved with our wedding date. My eyes burned, but I knew that some mistakes can't be unmade. The next morning, I stood in the departure hall at the airport. An hour before boarding, I bought a coffee and watched the planes take off and land. Ethan, I turned. Sophie was standing a few feet away. She wore no makeup, and her eyes were red and raw. She looked exhausted. In her hand was a file folder. "I came to see you off," she said softly, handing it to me. "This is the notarized copy of the divorce decree, and some other documents you might need." I took the folder. "Thanks. You didn't have to come." "I had to," she said, biting her lip. "I wanted to remember what you looked like one last time." We stood in silence for a moment before the boarding call for my flight crackled over the PA system. "I have to go," I said, picking up my suitcase. "Ethan," she said, suddenly grabbing my hand, if you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, just say the word. I don't care where you are. I'll be on the next flight." I looked at the woman I had loved for 7 years and gently pulled my hand away. "Take care of yourself, Sophie." I didn't look back as I walked towards security, but I knew she was standing there, watching until I disappeared from sight. As the plane took off, I stared out the window at the shrinking city below. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of lies had finally come to an end. At the airport, I had deleted every photo of Sophie from my phone, except one, a picture of me winning that college dart competition, a fire in my eyes. "This is the real me," I said to myself. Ahead of me was a new country and an unknown future, but at least it would be real. Beneath the glass and steel dome of Singapore's Changi Airport, I met Mr. Adrian Chun, an angel investor whose family had roots in Fujian. In a quiet cafe, he read through my business plan and asked only one question. "Mr. Cole, your project is fascinating," he said, adjusting his glasses. "But why were the investors back in the States so bearish on it?" I gave a bitter smile. "Because they thought it was too risky. They prefer short-term gains." Mr. Chun laughed. "In Singapore, we call that disruptive innovation. We call it long-term value." A week later, I secured $5 million in seed funding. There was only one condition. The company had to be headquartered in Singapore. "Why?" I asked. He smiled knowingly. "Some battles are best fought from a safe distance." 3 years later, New York City. The city lights were just beginning to glitter as evening fell over Manhattan. I stood in a ballroom at the top of the Ritz-Carlton. The city skyline spread out before me. My suit was tailored, and the name badge on my lapel was clear. Ethan Cole, President, North American Operations, Novatech. Novatech, the company I had joined 3 years ago, was now an industry titan. I was back in the States to establish our North American headquarters, and I was in charge of it all. At my side, my fiancée, Chloe, had her arm linked through mine. She was Adrian Chin's daughter, a brilliant and independent investment banker from Wall Street. Most importantly, she had never tried to control my life. "Nervous?" she asked softly. I shook my head and squeezed her hand. "Not with you here." She stood on her toes and kissed my cheek. "I'm just going to touch up my makeup. I'll be right back." I nodded, watching her go before turning back to the reception. I was talking with a group of investors when a familiar figure caught my eye. Sophie. She was wearing a stunning black gown, her makeup flawless. She was in conversation with some corporate executive. 3 years had passed, and she was still breathtakingly beautiful, though I could see a trace of weariness in her eyes. I looked away and continued my conversation. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. A few moments later, she turned, and our eyes met across the room. Her smile froze. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. She quickly excused herself and walked toward me. Her expression was a chaotic mix of shock, confusion, and a flicker of hope. "Ethan," her voice trembled. "Is it really you? You're back." I offered a polite, distant smile. "Ms. Davis, it's been a while." I spoke as if to a casual acquaintance. She looked me up and down, her eyes landing on my name badge. Her pupils constricted. You work here now? Did things in Singapore not work out?" "They worked out," I said, offering no more. She bit her lip, a flash of what looked like excitement in her eyes. She suddenly grabbed my wrist. "It's okay. I'm happy you're back. If you want to come back to Stellar, the offer still stands. If not, I can invest in your new company." It was clear she still thought I had failed. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary," I replied. "Ethan, can we talk? Somewhere private? Just for 5 minutes," she pleaded, tugging at my sleeve. I pulled my arm away. "There's nothing to talk about." "Are you still angry?" Her voice cracked. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I've spent the last 3 years regretting everything. Please, just give me one more chance. Can we start over?" I looked at her, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. I remembered how, when she was controlling my life, she had never offered me a single chance. "Sophie, what's past is past. You should forget about me," I said, my tone softening slightly. "No, it's not over," she insisted, shaking her head. You still hate me, don't you? I can make it up to you. Anything you want. I don't need you to make anything up to me, I interrupted. And besides, it's too late. I have a fiancé now. She stared at me, then let out a choked laugh and threw her arms around me. Honey, you're just saying that to make me jealous. I know you still have feelings for me. Just then, a cool, clear voice came from behind me. He's not lying. Chloe had returned. She gracefully moved to my side, took my arm, and gently pulled me from Sophie's grasp. Then she looked at Sophie, a polite but firm smile on her lips. Hello, I'm Chloe Chun, Ethan's fiancée. Would you mind giving my fiancé some space? The color drained from Sophie's face. Chloe continued, her voice calm. And by the way, you might not know this, but Ethan's project was a massive success. He's the president of North American operations for Novatech. He's back in the U.S. to oversee our entire East Asian market strategy. Sophie staggered back a step, her eyes wide with shock. President? She stammered, looking at me. Novatech. President. That's right, Chloe said, as if stating the most obvious fact in the world. Sophie's fingers clenched around her wine glass, her knuckles white. The impact of the news was visceral. 3 years ago, she had been the one on top, pulling my strings. Now I stood before her, and the tables had turned completely. Your project. It actually succeeded? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't answer. I just took Chloe's hand. Let's go. It's time for our speech. As we walked away, I heard Sophie choke out my name. Ethan. I didn't turn back. After the gala, I stood at the hotel entrance, the night air cool against my skin. My assistant approached. It actually succeeded? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't answer. I just took Chloe's hand. Let's go. It's time for our speech. As we walked away, I heard Sophie choke out my name. Ethan. I didn't turn back. After the gala, I stood at the hotel entrance, the night air cool against my skin. My assistant approached with a folder. Mr. Cole, the preliminary partnership meeting with Stellar Dynamics is tomorrow at 10. Will you be attending personally? I glanced at the cover, Stellar Dynamics. Sophie's company. After a moment of silence, I closed the folder. Have the VP of sales handle it, I said evenly. My assistant nodded and left. I looked up at the night sky and let out a long breath. 3 years. I was finally out of her shadow, and my own era was just beginning. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder. Are you okay? I shook my head and kissed the top of her head. I stopped caring a long time ago. Outside, a ferry moved slowly across the Hudson River, its lights shimmering on the dark water. 3 years ago, the man who was deceived, controlled, and saw only Sophie had died the moment he learned the truth. The man standing here now was in complete control of his own life. Sophie's tears, her regret, none of it mattered to me anymore. I looked down at the new engagement ring on my finger and smiled. The day the bid results were announced, I was reviewing the quarterly financial reports. My assistant knocked and entered, her expression hesitant. Mr. Cole, Ms. Davis from Stellar Dynamics is here to see you. She says she wants to thank you personally. My pen paused for a fraction of a second before I finished signing my name. Send her in, I said without looking up. When the door opened again, the sound of her heels was more rushed than I remembered. Sophie was dressed in a beige power suit, her hair pulled back neatly. She was holding a gift box. Ethan. She stopped in front of my desk, her voice much calmer than at the gala. Thank you for seeing me. I closed the report and gestured for her to sit. Ms. Davis, what can I do for you? She pushed the box across the desk. It was a bottle of rare, single malt scotch. I know Stellar won the contract because of you. You're mistaken. I cut her off, sliding the box back to her. You won because your proposal was superior and your bid was competitive. That's all. She blinked, then gave a wry smile. You're still the same. You won't even give me a chance to thank you. This isn't about thanks, I said, lacing my fingers on the desk. It's about basic business principles. I don't let personal history affect my company's decisions. A brief silence fell over the office. Outside the window, the skyscrapers of the financial district gleamed in the sun. I looked into it, she said suddenly. The other bidders had better terms. At least 2 of them had more mature tech solutions. I raised an eyebrow. And so you did help me, didn't you? She said, her eyes locked on mine. You do still have feelings for me. You're still looking out for me, aren't you? She looked genuinely happy. I couldn't help but laugh. I pressed the intercom. Lisa, could you bring in the evaluation report for the Stellar Dynamics bid? A moment later, my assistant brought in a thick binder. I flipped to the technical scoring section and pushed it in front of Sophie. Look closely. Your score in the technical innovation category was 15 points higher than the runner-up. Do you know why? I pointed to a specific line item. This algorithmic architecture. It's the blueprint from that project you shot down 7 years ago. Sophie's fingers trembled as she traced the words. What no one believed in back then is now worth a fortune, I said calmly. That's business. There are no permanent losers and no permanent winners. She looked up, her eyes shining with an emotion I couldn't decipher. What about us? Is there no permanent goodbye for us? I pulled the binder back, my voice firm. Sophie, business is business, and personal is personal. My ability to treat stellar dynamics fairly has no bearing on any possibility between us. I know I was wrong, she said, her eyes welling up. These past few years, I've done nothing but regret. Regret not believing in you, not supporting you. I had no idea your vision would actually succeed. Her voice broke. If I had known, I would have backed you from the very beginning. We'd still be together now. Ms. Davis, I said flatly, I've moved on from the past. You should too. Right now, we're nothing more than business partners. Her composure shattered, and tears began to spill down her cheeks. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I was so immature back then. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I shook my head gently, cutting her off. Don't. It doesn't matter anymore. You don't need to stay stuck in the past. But no buts, I said, standing up to signal the end of our meeting. Moving on is the best form of respect we can show each other. I wish you the best in your career. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, her voice choked with sobs. You still hate me, don't you? I stopped and looked back at her, and then I smiled. No, I said, slowly pulling my hand away. I don't hate you. I'm just indifferent. Her tears finally fell freely. She stood there for a long time before finally picking up the bottle of scotch and turning to leave. At the door, she paused. You know, she said, not looking at me, my biggest regret isn't that I tested you. It's that I didn't believe in you. The moment the door clicked shut, my phone lit up. It was a text from Chloe. What do you want for dinner tonight? I just learned how to make that braised short rib you love. I smiled as I typed my reply, my focus shifting back to the documents on my desk. The shadows of the past had receded like the tide, and the sunlight, streaming through the window, filled my entire office.